Happy to be here with my very special guest this week, award-winning director and now author, Jeff Margolis. Jeff, how are you, sir?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good, and I've been really excited to have this chat with you, in reading about your career and, now you've got your book coming out. Because I'm a film and TV nut, especially with the behind the scenes portion of it. And
Right.
having, dabbled in filmmaking a little bit, and I've also worked, in production and sports for several years, up until about a couple of years ago. So I'm really excited to have this chat with you and pick your brain.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. I'm
Yeah,
here for
for sure. So I always like to start out the conversations with this because, as I'm sure you know from, your own personal journey and other stories that you've heard from those that work in the industry,
it. Right.
there's never a how-to guidebook. There's not like a set way to get into film or TV. So, what is your story? How did you decide that this is what you wanted to ultimately do?
Well, it's very clear in the book, the first couple chapters, but basically, my dad was in the electronics business. And when I was 5 years old, one night he brought home this little box that had a piece of glass on the front of it. He plugged it into the wall, and there were people inside that box. And I was fascinated with what I saw. Tried to figure out how they got in there and how they got small and all that. Anyway, that's sort of where it started. And it was at a time when I know a lot of parents now are giving their kids time limits on phones and computers and all that because there's so much going on. But my parents never gave me, as they said to me, as I grew up, as long as you get your homework done, you get enough sleep, you can watch as much television as you want. So I did. And I learned a lot. And as I got older, I wanted to know how it was made. I wanted to know who decided what color the lights should be and who decided on the sets and the costumes and yeah, all of that. And by the time I was in junior high school, there was a shop teacher there who offered a class in scenery making and sound and lights and all that in the school auditorium. So I got involved there. And I started watching more and more television and realized that I really liked the entertainment part of television. I liked variety shows. And I'm trying to think. So I guess it was the end of junior high school, the beginning of high school. I started watching the Academy Awards. And I thought, man, one day I want to direct that show. That was sort of my dream. And I started doing cue cards. I got into television. I was fortunate enough to have a family member who was a big deal. His name was Monty Hall. He had a show on NBC called Let's Make a Deal. And he just opened a door for me. I said to him, can you help me? I was going to UCLA at the time. Let me back up a step. My parents and my grandparents wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer.
As most
So,
parents do.
right. So I graduated from high school and I got accepted to USC as a pre-med student. And I went in there, and about halfway through my first semester, I said, no, I'm not dissecting any more frogs. I can't stand the sight of blood. And so I changed schools. I went to UCLA, which had at that time the only television school really in the country. So I was going to UCLA. I went and spoke to my uncle Monty and said, I really want to be in it. I want to be in a studio. I want to be there. Even though I'm going to school, I want to see how it's. So he opened a door for me and I got a job doing cue cards. You know what those are, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people call them idiot cards. And I went to work on Let's Make a Deal, and then got also asked to do the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour. And so I became friendly with Tommy Smothers on that show. And the Smothers Brothers led me to the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour. And I went from cue cards to being the associate director on the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour. And then my first network primetime series, variety series, was on CBS, Tony, Orlando, and Dawn. I don't know if you remember that, if your listeners remember that. These are the early days of variety television. You know, the Smothers Brothers and Laugh-In were kind of the two shows that really changed the face of television. And I was fortunate enough to be right there in the infancy of television when the variety shows were growing. We could try new things, we could do anything we wanted to do and make it work. And so from Sonny and Cher, excuse me, and Tony, Orlando, and Don, I just, after that, started doing one-off specials and other series. And I was young and I was talented, and I was asked by a lot of producers and a lot of network executives to do a lot of shows. So, what I say to you is that it's nice to know somebody who can open a door for you. A lot of people don't have that opportunity. But the most important thing is that you have to have the talent. You have to have the desire to do what you want to do, be a producer, a director, a lighting designer, a production designer, whatever it is. You need to have the talent, and you've got to have the passion to really want to do it. And you've got to be better than anybody else. That's the way you have to look at it. You just have to be better than anybody else. And so I kept doing specials and series, and I finally got asked to do the Academy Awards. And so my
How was that
dream,
feeling?
well, it was something I always wanted to do, and my dream came true. So it was quite an accomplishment when I got asked to do that.
I can imagine so, because that's regardless of how you feel about the Oscars, it's like you always have to at least be aware of it, because it is like it's a celebration of film. And I preach
Uh,
on the show all the time that you know eh, I envy like great sculptors or painters that can create these beautiful pieces of art.
of course.
But I think film and TV are the greatest forms of art there is, because you can just tell so many different types of stories and so many different emotions with the acting. You throw in a good score, you throw in a good director, so many things that go into it. And I think the Academy Awards are no exception, because you want it to be special, because it's like the biggest party in the world.
Well, every award show that I did, and I pretty much have done them all, each one of them is special in its own way. The Academy Awards honors film. The Screen Actors Guild Awards honors actors only in film and television. And the Grammys is music, the American Music Awards music, as you well know. And I always, each one of these shows, I always put my signature, like Picasso signed all his paintings, all those famous artists. I think directors in television and film are doing art. We're painting pictures for you to sit at home and enjoy. We're just painting moving pictures instead of still pictures. Same
I,
thing. So when I do big event specials that are done in an arena or a theater, I always put myself, when I'm directing the shows, I always put myself in the fifth row center of the auditorium, theater, the venue, and I try and shoot the show as a director the way I would want to see it if I were sitting at home. I want everybody at home to feel like they're part of the event, like they're sitting in the audience and part of the event. So it's a challenge. It's a difficult thing to do, but that's what I've always done. And
And I
that's been successful for me.
Yeah, and I can imagine so because, with the Oscars, you have so many moving parts, with bringing out the presenters and then you bring up the award recipients and you cut to a different segment and so on and so forth. But i- it's it's gone together pretty seamlessly, and I think, it does a really good job, and I would give you the majority of the credit for that, is you do feel like you're there.
Right. Right. And people who watch television don't realize really what goes into it. They have no idea. And they're not supposed to. They're supposed to pick a program, watch it, and enjoy it. But though all of those big award shows, especially the Oscars, it takes for the director, the producer, the director, it takes about 4 to 5 months of work. And the last few months are 24/7. You really do work that hard to put all the pieces together, like you said. There are a lot of puzzle pieces, and there are a lot of moving parts to these award shows. The getting everybody there, and then once you get them there where they're supposed to be, then you got to get them on stage when they're supposed to be there doing what they're supposed to be doing, and mixing musical performances with clips from shows that you have to show, and getting presenters. I mean, it's it's a lot of work. It's a lot
And
of work, but it's very rewarding. It's very rewarding.
oh, absolutely. And I think, something that, not to discredit any of the other awards ceremonies or shows, something that the Oscars, I think, does better than anybody else is creating or capturing the various emotions. Like you have these heartfelt speeches of, an actor or a director that has been waiting their whole career to win this award, and you see the
Right,
tears in their eyes and just the pure excitement. And then you have the in memoriam package that's done for those that have passed away. And I
right.
think, it just captures so many emotions very well.
Yes. The in memoriam package, in the first year that I did the Oscars, the producer was a gentleman named Alan Carr, and the Academy really wanted the show to be different. And Alan was the guy to do it. He was a Broadway producer and a movie producer, and he'd never produced a live television show before. So it was a challenge for me. Fortunately, Alan and I knew each other and we'd worked together before. And because he was a handful, because he'd never done a live television show before, he wanted to do everything. And there's certain things that don't work on television, like they work in a Broadway theater, uh, or when you're making a movie. So it was quite a challenge, but we did a couple things on that show. First of all, when the envelope is open now, you'll notice on all award shows, and this is something we started the year that we did the show. People used to open the envelope and say, and the winner is. And Alan and I felt that every nominee won. Every nominee that got selected for doing good work won. So instead of opening the envelope and saying the winner is, we opened the envelope and said the Oscar goes to, and all the shows adopted that. Now it's the Grammy goes to, the American Music Award goes to. So that's one thing that stuck, which was kind of a good thing. The other thing I was going to tell you, mentioned in memoriam, what the Oscars used to do is they used to take one famous movie star who passed away that year, and they used to do a package on that person. And Alan and I sort of thought, well, there's so many people involved. There are a lot of stars that pass away during the year, and there are a lot of other people. This is the Academy Awards. It's about people who make movies. It's not just the stars, it's about everybody. So why don't we make the package? Why don't we acknowledge everybody who we've lost during the year? And it became a big deal, and very accepted. It was very sad. Yeah, it was sad to see all those people go. It was sad to see one person, but when you had 30 or 40, it was that much more, got to you that much more.
I remember the
So
first time
those
I
are
saw.
two,
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, those are two things that we did that sort of stuck on all the award shows over the years. I watched the Grammy Awards last night. I thought the In Memoriam package was absolutely spectacular, the way that they
Hmm.
did it. It was
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah,
You start to
absolutely.
say something. I interrupted you.
Oh,
I'm
no,
sorry.
no worries. No, I was just gonna say that, I agree with you in the sense that I'm glad it stuck because there are so many people that are involved in the filmmaking process that people may not know about. Because people think of, the actors, they think of, the directors and, your composers like your John Williams or your Hans Zimmers, but
Yes,
there are, a film is a big machine and it takes a lot of cogs to make that machine run. So the fact that you guys pay tribute to everyone from lighting to producing to
right.
acting, all of it, I think it's a really beautiful thing.
Well, one of the things that we tried to do over the years, I then produced the show with Gil Cates for a number of years, and then Quincy Jones and I did it. And one of the things that was really important to us on the Oscars is when we started doing the Oscars, we learned that people were really interested in only certain awards. They were interested in Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actor and Actress, Best Director, and Best Picture. Those were really the awards that anybody cared about. So we thought we would do like a production number around costume design and take the five nominated costume designers and build a production number with the choreographer where the dancers could wear the wardrobe that was being nominated, things like that. And we put together a big production number. So we tried to do that with a number of awards that we could. We made animated shorts. We made a big deal out of animated shorts, and we tried to acknowledge every award over the years and show the audience that they were all important, not just those six.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, filmmaking is such a big accomplishment, and those that have never done it or dabbled in it, you can't understand the work that goes into it until you experience it. So
Absolutely.
I think to acknowledge all the different categories is so, so important.
Yeah, film is very to make a movie is a lot of work, and it's very difficult. To make a good television show is the same. It just doesn't take as much time. One of the reasons that I decided to go into television instead of film is because I like the immediacy of television. It happens much, much faster. And on these award shows, there are no second takes. There are no let's do that again. It's that's what I love. I always sort of when I sit in the control room, when I sit in the director's chair and we count down. I mean, my book is called We're Live in Five, My Extraordinary Life in Television, because the last things you hear on an award show are we're live in five, four, three, two, one, then you're on the air. And I always, at the end of the countdown, I always felt like I was the same as a jet airline pilot. Once they push that throttle forward and that plane starts to go, they've made a commitment. They got to get it off the ground and get it up in the air as fast as they can. Doing a live television show is the same way. Five, four, three, two, one. That's it. whatever happens, happens. And that's one of the great things about doing live television is that whatever happens, happens. A lot of people like to see when there are mistakes. They like to see things
It
like that.
humanizes them.
It humanizes the shows, absolutely. So we try and do the best we can, but when you're live on the air and the winner is announced and the winner comes up and makes an acceptance speech, you have no idea what they're going to say, what direction they're going to go. And that's why the music playoff was created. When people start to talk too long, the music starts to sneak in and then it gets louder and louder. And there are a number of people, like you said earlier on in this discussion, there are a number of people who would get up there and they would talk a little bit too loud. We give you 45 seconds, is what we tell you. 40, you can say a lot in 45 seconds. That's enough. And it's a big show. It's supposed to be 3 hours, 3.5 hours. Help us get there. Make your speeches 45 seconds. So there are a lot of people who hear the music and they say, wait a second, I worked my whole life to get up here. Don't cut me off. And then what do you do? That's part of the challenge of doing a live show too, because there's somebody sitting behind you from the network that's saying, when you get to the next commercial break, saying, how long are we? How much over are we? And how are you going to make up the time? And so you have to have a couple of insurance policies along the way to try and get you back to the 3 or 3.5 hours. Sometimes it happens. Most of the time it doesn't. You do the best you can, but
At the end of the day, that's all we can do.
yeah, you do the best you
Yep.
can. That's all you can do.
Yep. Absolutely. As we start to wrap up here, you mentioned it was actually an excellent segue to your book. So tell everyone, the or reiterate the name of the book and where people can get it.
It's called We're Live in Five, My Extraordinary Life in Television. And my life has been extraordinary in television. I've been blessed. I've met everybody. I've done everything. It's been wonderful. You can get the book on Amazon. It's coming out February 13th. You can pre-order it right now if you want, but it's coming out next week. And you can get it at Barnes and Noble. You can get it at Target. And it's really a good read. It's a lot of fun. And I think for students of film and television, it's also a good read because, there's I share everything and I tell you how I got to where I got and when I got there, how I moved in other directions and and then it's fun. And then there's stories about all of these great shows that I've been involved in and the great people I've had an opportunity to work with. And I've traveled the world doing television shows, and I talk about that. So it's a fun read.
I can't wait to read it, as I'm stoked for it. Do you have a
Thank you.
website that you'd like to plug so the viewers and listeners can find out more about you?
Jeff Margolis Productions is my production company, and you can Google it and learn a lot more about what we've done over the years.
Fantastic. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for taking the time to have this chat. This has been an honor.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Anytime you want me to come back after the book comes out, I'd be happy to.